Hello and welcome again to District of Sports. I'm George Gerbo. A reminder that you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search District of Sports in your favorite podcast app. And as always, to find all of our sports coverage here at the Washington Times at washingtontimes.com/sports. It's an all-soccer episode of District of Sports, and I am pleased to be joined by NWSL This Week podcast host, a statistician for the league, general, all-around knowledgeable person about anything and everything going on in soccer in and around the DMV and in the district. Michael Minnick, it's good to see you, Minnick.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, George. Talk about this league and this team in particular. Absolutely.
The Washington Spirit, second in the table this season, hoping to make it back to the championship where they lost last year to Orlando. To do so, it seems it's going to be a little bit more difficult of a road to travel, which we'll kind of get into here in a minute. But they've been beset with a lot of different injuries. Of course, first and foremost, Trinity Rodman, who's dealt with a sprained ligament, and just they lose their final two games, but they already had the position locked up in second and everything like that. I guess vis-a-vis with the injuries, how much of a concern is it that they don't have the momentum going into the playoffs, especially having to rest so many people because of injuries? And will we see Trinity Rodman back here in this postseason?
So I think I'll start with the Trinity Rodman question first. It seems like the answer to that is maybe. Like you said, she sprained the ligament in a midweek CONCACAF game at Audi Field. The Spirit were in a position where they needed to win that game or tie that game to advance. As you said, they'd already clinched second. So that was kind of their motivation the next couple weeks was lock up that CONCACAF spot. So they played their best lineup. Rodman gets hurt. She's had back issues this year too, which also cost her a good bit of time. That's been a recurring thing for her. So she's finally back. She gets League Player of the Month. She's playing great, and then she hurts her ligament. So not as bad as they thought initially, which was really good to hear. But it seems like it's a question mark. I kind of feel like her role for the playoffs is going to be late sub, and that might ramp up the further they get if they make a run. Maybe you get her 10 or 15 minutes in the quarterfinal potentially. I feel like that's unlikely. Maybe you play her a little bit in the semi if you make it, and then for the final, you hope that maybe she can give you a half. That would be my guess. And then it's not only been injuries for this team, it's been pregnancies. Ashley Haas was the team's leading scorer on maternity leave. Casey Kruger had an injury, decided that she was going to go on maternity leave. Andy Sullivan tore her ACL late last year. She decided to go on maternity leave. So you can make a case their best forward, their best midfielder, and the best defender are all on maternity leave. You're missing Rodman, but there's still a lot of quality and depth in this team. I would say this team or Kansas City, which was the League Shield winner, the first place team, are the deepest teams in the league, even with these injuries, even with those issues. The question mark, though, is you mentioned they lost their last two, rested a lot of players, put a lot of players in the injury report that maybe would have been healthy if it was a must-win game. So that's the big question, is how many of those players are legitimately hurt and how many of them are just kind of recovering from things and they wanted to protect them and not send them all the way to Utah in November to play a game, and they'll be healthy for the quarterfinal on Saturday.
And in this first round game against Racing Louisville, a team that's been knocking on the door in the NWSL for a couple of seasons now, and they finally get their chance and crack at the playoffs. Washington, a 2-0 win and a 2-2 draw against Louisville this season. And Louisville, a team that a lot of people around the league just happy to see both in the playoff, and also a team that some expect could make a run even from such a low seeding position in this tournament, Mike.
Yeah, they were the last team in. Even though they're the 7th seed, they were the last team that hadn't clinched. They won on Sunday on decision day, beat Bay FC, who's been really struggling, beat them 1-0. Got a goal from a rookie, Ella House, who played at Duke to get in. And then they leapfrogged Gotham, who lost. So they got the 7th seed. And they've been playing well, undefeated in their last 4 games. Emma Sears has been a breakout star for them, player out of Ohio State that had a nice rookie year, has really broken out this year with 10 goals. Had a hat trick for the national team last week against New Zealand. So she's in really good form. She's kind of been carrying things for them. And they too have really overcome some injuries. Savannah DeMello was the heartbeat of their team, their best playmaker. She had an incident, a cardiac incident. So they had to kind of, she's out indefinitely and we hope she plays again, but there was a really scary one with her a couple weeks ago. So they lose her. They've had some injuries in the back. They actually traded with Washington to get Germantown native McKenna Morris to kind of shore up their defense. And then she got hurt. So they've kind of been getting by with 13, 14, 15 players, but playing well, playing cohesively. Taylor Flint, who started her career as a forward, she's 6'1", really good target in the air. She's become a really good defensive midfielder for them, maybe their best player. They've got some experience like Aaron Wright in the back. And then they had an injury to their goalkeeper, Katie Lund, who was drafted by the Spirit about a third of the way through the year. Jordan Bloomer has come in and been fantastic for them. Became the first goalkeeper in league history to save 2 penalty kicks in the same game. So she has been huge. And then their coach, Bev Yanes, who started her pro career in DC when she was Beverly Goebel at that point. She is just the second American female coach to guide a team to the playoffs, and the first in 12 years. So she has been fantastic, and she has got this team to this position where, yes, they're the underdog, but they're playing well, and I think they feel like they can come into Washington and win on Saturday.
Yeah, it's you run into this maybe less in soccer than other sports. You know, the team with the full steam of momentum. Of course, anything can happen, and crazy things can happen on the pitch. The chances that Louisville wins this game Saturday are what to you, just because of this, how well they've been playing, and then Washington, where we're in this kind of, Washington could at the same time use this roster that's been beat up and injured and missing folks and have people out on leave, and could get all the way to the championship again like they did last season. But then also it does feel that they could be upset in the first round. It's really this, like, I don't want to say coin flip, but right on the edge here of what to expect on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think what's going to kind of move the needle is the injuries. Is Corey Bethune 90 minutes fit? That makes a big difference. Are they able to play Gabby Carl 90 minutes? Are they going to be able to play some of these attacking players? Give Monday was just with the national team, and then her father passed away. So she just got back into town. How fit is she going to be? Those are players the Spirit, I think, need to win. But I would say if they're missing a couple of those pieces, I say Louisville has probably a 40% chance of winning. If the Spirit are at full strength, considering, who's out, if they don't have Rodman, if they don't have the players on maternity leave, I say that chance goes down to about 25%. The Spirit play extremely well at home. They lost to Orlando. That was their first home loss in a while. But again, that was a situation where they were missing some players. They were down 3-2 before they brought somebody like Hal Hirschfeld on. They were kind of playing some starters 45 minutes and taking them off. So that I don't think was too indicative of what they can be. I think we're going to see much more of the team that went undefeated for a couple of months, was clearly the second best team in the regular season. I feel like this is the game that they should win, and it'll be disappointing if they lose. And then we'll see what happens in the next round if they're able to win. I think that'll be a tougher test.
The second round, all these games up until, quarterfinal, semifinal will both be at Audi Field in the district. Mm-hmm. Portland or San Diego would await. Olivia Moultrie, one of the stars of the national team, and for Portland, they would play them in the next round. So West Coast team coming east. The championship November 22nd in San Jose if the Spirit were to get there. Let's shift our focus to the other tenant at Audi Field, and that's DC United, which I think turmoil is probably the least descriptive word I could use to describe what's going on within that organization. Multiple coaches this season. Allie McKay as the general manager, less than 2 seasons. They've settled on Renee Weiler now as the head coach, but there's just a lot of pressure on this organization. I was at a game earlier this year. It was unlike previous DC United games that I remember, with less activity from the supporters clubs, Screaming Eagles and Barra Brava, less people, and just the energy in the place is gone for a team that perennially was maybe not necessarily a contender, but one of the toughest places to play in the MLS was Washington, whether it was at RFK or at Audi Field. And it feels like this franchise is at a little bit of an inflection point here, Michael.
Yeah, and this was the model franchise of the league the first decade, I would say. Won multiple championships. We're playing in a major venue at RFK Stadium. As you said, the atmosphere was great with not only American fans, but the Salvadorans, the Central Americans. You had a lot of really authentic branding on that club. That was not a club that was kind of, generated by, we need to have this kind of vibe. The vibe came with it. Mm-hmm. And as you said, that has deteriorated because that's what happens when you lose. This team has really not been relevant for a while. Probably the last time that Wayne Rooney was here as player and then a coach. Kristen Benteke was a big name in soccer, but not a name that's going to really move the needle in terms of general sports fans. And they just have not been successful. And, I think also that was a club that early on was developing younger players. More recently, something like Andy Nahar, who you could say, okay, this is a guy that's going to be on the national team in a couple of years. That has kind of gone away too. I think they've fallen behind the curve in terms of having an academy, having a youth development, having a pipeline. We've seen in places like LA, Portland, Philadelphia, certainly right up the road on 95 has done a great job of guys like Kevin Sullivan, Kellen LeBlanc, the son of our former WVU coach Marlon LeBlanc, is a great youth player for them playing for the national team. Those are guys that, because Philly has an academy and DC does not, they're playing for Philadelphia. So I think that is a big part of it, is just this club has not kept up with the big names and kept up with the grassroots. And if you don't do either of those things, you're going to be hurting a little bit. If you don't do both, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. And you've got the kind of these ancillary pressures, it seems, as well on the franchise, Michael, where they're bottom third in the league in terms of player compensation. And so they've not gone out and made the big splash thing. Rooney was at the back end of his career when he was a player for DC, and, generated a lot of, interest and anticipation, everything like that. And then add to that the World Cup, which we will talk about in a future episode as it comes to North America next year. And very prominently, Washington and the Washington-Baltimore region was bypassed by it because FedEx Field, now Northwest Stadium, not up to standard for where they want to host these games. And so DC tried to couple a bid with Baltimore to play some games, and that wasn't going to fly. You're going to be shuttling people back and forth, and they can't stay in one location. And now, co-owners of United, Jason Levine, Stephen Kaplan, they've broached the idea, as reported this week, that they want to potentially host one of the regular season games in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium, home of the Ravens. Perhaps when Lionel Messi comes with Inter Miami, to try to drum up more interest that way. And it feels a little bit like a slap in the face to the fans who buy season tickets and had packed out Audi Field in the past season since the move over there to Buzzard Point, that now you're going to take such a prize game and make DC people drive 40 miles, but it's going to take you an hour and a half to get to Baltimore, just how it is, and force these people who are loyal fans that take the metro or whatnot to the district to then have to go hike and do that. It just seems like misalignment of priorities, both on how they're compensating players and then how they're treating fans so far this year.
Well, and also they've been waiting 2 years for him to play in DC. He hasn't yet. And now potentially next year, if he does, he'll be part of the Argentina World Cup setup for sure. So we'll see if that affects, how much that affects Inter Miami. But the third chance to maybe have him play here, he's not going to play here. He's going to play in Baltimore potentially. So I think a lot of fans that were already disaffected are just saying this is just another sign that this club has kind of lost touch with what made it great in this fan base.
A lot to get over, as you know. It's a super proud soccer market. It's a noted soccer market, and to see the professional women's team here has done so well since its inception, basically, and even in the previous iterations of women's soccer that you've been a part of in and around the DMV, and now to see the men's side kind of slag, kind of reminiscent of the national team a little bit, if I have to draw the comparison. But it'll be interesting to see if they if DC United can overcome and perform as well as the Spirit have, and kind of get back on the MLS map, especially when, as you know, you see so many MLS teams upstart out in, the stuff that Cincinnati's done, Nashville, Atlanta, of course, a few years ago was like, wow, 50,000 people and playing there. Could there be a future when we see once you get a new RFK stadium built on the RFK site, could you see soccer games there? Of course, like that would be an intention, but the franchise just kind of seems stuck right now, which is unfortunate for fans. It's such a pivotal moment, Mike, for American soccer.
Well, and I think too, it seems like the Spirit have kind of taken the lead with RFK. Everything has been mentioned about RFK has mentioned the Spirit. And I think that's one of the reasons why they got Magic Johnson in this ownership group, was his ties to the Commanders. So I think the Spirit have been really proactive. Michelle Kang and that ownership group have said, we want to play at RFK Stadium. We want to have a big match at RFK. Audi is great. We're getting 17, 18, 19,000. But if we can get a showcase game where, some of the best players in the world are coming to DC, we can have it at RFK. We can make an event. We saw that a little bit this summer where the Spirit went out and played Bay FC at Oracle Park, the home of the San Francisco Giants, had the biggest crowd in league history. I think they see that and say, we can have a showcase event like that at RFK where we really promote it. We make it special, and we get 25, 30,000 people to watch the Spirit play a league game, not even a special game, but just a regular league game.
Yeah. And we know as that continues to grow and develop, you will keep all the tabs on it. Tell people where they can find the podcast, where they can find your work, especially as longtime I will speak from personal experience. Michael was known the league before the league existed, if that's something that can even be said. So one of the most knowledgeable people you'll find on women's soccer. Let people know where they can find your work.
Yeah, so the NWSL This Week podcast, it's me and Dan Malata, who's been doing this even longer than I have in terms of men's soccer journalism. And then Becky Morgan, who's a Racing Louisville person. So we're going to have a lot to talk about in this week's episode, win, lose, or draw between Washington and Racing. And then, I do a lot of work under the hood. But in terms of the public work, right now, the podcast is the best place to find me to talk about this league.
Awesome. Championship coming up this month. Fun month to round out the NWSL season. Michael Minnick, I appreciate the time. As always, thank you so much.
Of course. Anytime, George. Anytime you want me, I'll be here.
My thanks again to Michael for joining me. The NWSL playoffs are going on all this month, each Saturday, culminating in the championship game on November 22nd in San Jose, California. A reminder that you can find District of Sports wherever you get your podcasts. Just search District of Sports in your favorite podcast app. And to find all of our sports coverage at the Washington Times at washingtontimes.com/sports, on social at WashTimesSports, as well as at Gerbo3 for myself on social media. I'm George Gerbo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.